Councilman Rafe.
Here.
Vice Mayor Farrell.
Here.
Councilman Wilson. And let the record reflect that Councilman Leeang is not present.
Okay, if we could stand for the pledge and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, again, we ask for wisdom and guidance. We pray for comfort for Pearla's family with the loss of her dad. Pray for Councilman Leeang for health, and give us wisdom and guidance in this meeting. We pray in your name. Amen.
What's the date?
19.
Before we go into the approval of the agenda, just a reminder that there is no smoking within 50 feet of the door, so you got to carry it out into the parking lot someplace. I guess we've had some complaints about that, so 50 feet from the door, step up 3 paces. All right. Any changes to the agenda? Anybody need to add or delete?
No, there's actually, what I thought was I need to add is on the agenda.
Okay, all right. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, Jim makes a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ron, further discussion. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Moving to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion. If there are no changes.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Jim, second.
Second.
Second by Ron, further discussion. No changes, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, motion passes. Moving to public comments. I have Dennis Lip. Start off there.
Council members, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. Two things. Number one, just to remind you, this is the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. And most of us still believe that under God, secondly, I want to let y'all know that I am now a member of the Palm Beach County Planning Commission, appointed by Commissioner Santeria on the 5th of November. And will be part and parcel of the Planning Commission for the foreseeable future. Part of what goes along with that is this whole big document here about Minto. And we need to get our ducks in a row and plan how we're going to address this. I'd like to indulge you a little bit just to read you some of the comments that Minto made in response to staff's comments. Staff's comment under growth management: provide for sustainable communities and lifestyle choices. A, directing the location, type, intensity, and form of development that respects the character of a particular geographical area. Sounds good, doesn't it? Ensuring smart growth by protecting natural resources, preventing urban sprawl, providing for efficient use of land, balancing land uses, and C, providing for facilities and services in a cost-efficient, timely manner. Minto's response: the surrounding pattern is not efficient, and Minto West community will provide much-needed balance in the southwestern area. The proposed uses of increased in densities and intensities remain consistent with the surrounding area and allow for efficient use of property and a greater balance of land uses and additional opportunities to remediate the jobs to housing imbalance in the surrounding area. So they're mixing all sorts of metaphors there together. In other words, what they have there, they're going to comply with it, but they're going to make it better because they're going to make it more dense and more intense as opposed to the urban sprawl characteristics. And then one last thing, land use compatibility. Ensure that densities and intensities of land uses are not in conflict with those of surrounding areas, whether incorporated or unincorporated. Response: as discussed above, the Minto development lies in the center of a vast area committed to sprawl pattern development. The Central Western communities have been the subject of numerous county initiatives aimed at addressing the land use imbalance in the area. As the agricultural enclave, the densities and intensities proposed for the Minto area, by definition, consistent and compatible with this development. Here they reference to go to their development plan, which was the same plan that was presented by Mr. Dippendorfer back in 2008, which went out as far as Madison Green to have as one of their surrounding communities. Madison Green versus Los Angeles Road. More importantly, by incorporating new urbanism principles through the proposed implementing principles and by providing needed employment and commercial uses to serve residents within the entire Central Western communities, Metro West will alleviate rather than exacerbate the existing urban sprawl pattern developed, thereby addressing the identity of County Planning's needs. So this is what we're up against. We've got to have a lot of ammunition. I've spoken with county attorney about an AGO and attorney general opinion, and I think that's something that we need to look at. This probably will not come before the Planning Commission until after the first of the year. The meeting on the 20th of December does not include this. But I think the sooner that we have an AGO opinion, the better off we'll be, because in my meetings with the county staff and the county commissioners, and the mayors and I meetings concerning Highland Dunes, is they sort of going like this. And we need to realize that these folks are operating in a bubble. I hope that when they decide to finally come out here and see what our community is like, they're going to realize that we don't need an urban setting in the midst of a rural community.
Thank you, Dennis. This is something that we're going to need to get the whole community involved in. This is not something we can sit around and think, well, it's not going to change our lifestyle. Because if they're allowed to go with a higher density, every other future project out there will look at the same thing and go with a higher density. And Okeechobee, which divides our roads, we will be lost in trying to limit it or design it in some way that will be reflective of our community. So this is probably the most important fight we've had outside of the original Callery Judge since incorporation of Road 4. So I encourage everybody to get involved. And so anyway, all right. Moving on to, yeah, Ron? All right, let's get the cards up. We're ready to move on. Okay, Mary at Junkie?
Janky, yes.
Okay, we're going to come on up and speak.
And please give me your name and
Sure. My name is Mary Janky, and I live at 13725 Fox Trail, Waxahachie. And I'd like to know what's going to happen with Bryant Road. If it's going to get paved or not paved. It's very difficult to drive on that road. If you're driving from west to east, you cannot drive on the side of the road you're supposed to drive on. You have to drive on the opposite side. Even though that side of the street is bad, it's not as bad from west to east. I do not own a car. I own a motorcycle. That is my means of transportation. Taking that road is extremely dangerous, especially when it rains. You get more potholes, and you can't see them. And when you ride a motorcycle, it's extremely, extremely dangerous. And it's just getting progressively worse. And they were down here doing this road. We were told at the last meeting they were supposed to come up, hopefully, and do that road since they were right here, 1.3 miles away.
I think right now we're waiting for the letters to come in approving, getting everybody to approve. The letter from us went out requesting those.
Right.
So we need to get those back in before we can do anything with it.
Is there any way of getting the potholes? I mean, if the road's supposed to be maintained, nobody's maintaining that road. It is god awful nasty to ride that road. And it's extremely dangerous, especially when the cars are coming at you and you're in their lane, because you can't ride on your side of the road. Somebody here really needs to go down that road and travel it.
I think we're talking about that road tonight.
I hope so.
All right, Darrell Fisher, come on up.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Darrell Fisher out of the 13725 Fox Trail. Approximately 3 months ago, I put in to have fill put on that road. I've lived there 13 years, never a drop of fill put on it. I've owned the property 10 years prior to that. Never a drop of fill put on it. Right now, they keep grading it and they're digging it further down, down, down. The cold water, they're making it wider and wider. It used to be a road, now it's a highway. It won't be long before it's I-95. I've had 3 strokes and a heart attack. I need that road to be accessible by fire rescue. It's not. When it rains, it floods. At the end of the road, there's approximately a 2-foot deep hole where water will not drain. It needs to be filled in. I don't blame the guys who do the grading. What they do is use the same old dirt over and over, and they steal it from one place to put it in another place. Now they've started expanding the road out to get more fill. I would like to have something done about it. And I would like it in writing as to what decisions has been being made, because it's been 3 months.
All right, we will get back to our management and see what we can come up with.
It's done what to your management one time, sir?
Well, this is for comments. These are really not agenda items. If you had come to us and been able to put these on the agenda, we'd be able to discuss them and
Okay,
give
what's
an
the
idea.
process of doing that?
Get with one of our council members and get it put on the agenda. So anyway, but we will, we're going to direct Mark into looking into it and find out what the deal is and try to get you.
Mark's done been out there one time. All I'm asking for tonight is a report on what they've decided to do for 3 months. He has been out there and looked at it,
Okay.
well, I have heard nothing.
All right, we'll see what Mark can come up with. Like I say, this is part of the agenda, it's comments by the public.
Okay, I can make a comment about it and request a report on it,
What's that?
and request a report on it, let me know something in writing.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, that's what I want, I want something
Any
in
problem with
writing.
all requesting in writing? What, the deal on Fox Trail?
I can give a report later tonight at the appropriate
Okay.
time of the meeting.
Okay. And then, I guess he had one that he wanted read into the record. Please explain what rubbish pickup is, the amount, and how much there is to be left. So anyway, and that's a square footage. Your best answer to that is Frank Show.
I spoke to him before, and he doesn't know what a square yard is. He admitted to me of that.
He doesn't know what a square yard is?
No, he doesn't.
Oh, I can handle that. That's 3 feet by 3 feet.
Well, we all can, but he's supposed to be in charge of it.
Well, you know, you just asked, you said he didn't know what a square yard is.
I asked him.
And I'm
he
saying,
said
I
he
think he does know what a square yard is, so. Anyway, thank you very much.
didn't. Okay, thank you.
I think we're referring to cubic yards.
What's that?
Cubic yards.
Cubic yard, 3 by 3 to 3. Square yard, 3 by 3. So cubic
How
yard.
many feet in that
That's
cubic
what we're
yard?
talking about, yeah. So my mistake too.
May I ask a question? I'll come back up.
Yeah, come back up.
Okay, since Mr. Frank knows the measurements of it and he's in charge of it, if it's 6 yards, and if it's got 3 foot wide and 3 foot high, how many feet long would the pile be?
That's your question.
Hey, come on, you don't know what 3 times 6 is?
18.
Yeah, but look at him, he's shaking his head.
Well,
I'm sorry, excuse me, everybody, for getting loud. This has been going on for years.
yeah, hey,
Our
look,
yard-
look. In the comments, it's not time to unwind on.
I'm not unwinding, I'm
Yes, you
bringing
are.
up.
Sir,
No, I'm
please.
bringing up
No.
that I've
Thank you
spoken
very
on this
much.
before. Thank
You asked
you.
to have it read into the record, I did.
Okay, that's what I want.
All right. Moving to no committee reports, 6A, public hearing.
Almost lost it.
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and read resolution. Resolution 2013-06, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Waxahachie Groves, Florida, adopting a budget amendment for the town's budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2012, and ending September 30, 2013, providing for severability, conflicts, and effective date.
All right. Mark?
Yes, thank you. Your Honor, I apologize, under the circumstances, Bill had planned to be here personally to address the item due to the issues of his family. What I'm going to do is I'd like to read the memo he provided to you into the record of some of my further comments, and it won't take too long, but I think it addresses all the concerns. His memorandum starts off, as council is aware, staff typically submits several budget amendments throughout the year for consideration and adoption, which modifies either or both the estimated revenues and the appropriations. This is done in order to afford latitude and flexibility to provide for unanticipated expenditures that occur during the course of the year and then the final 2 months that we have pursuant to Florida statute. The budget amendment provided to council at its November 5, 2013 meeting was an attempt to bring into compliance budget appropriations that may have or will be exceeded in fiscal year 2013. Foremost, it is important to acknowledge that the budget is not an accounting document. However, they provide a framework for the allocation of resources to the policy directions established by the council. Pursuant to state statute, the town must provide budgeted revenues and other sources must equal the total estimated expenditure appropriation for that fiscal year. Explicitly, FFS 166.241.2 in part states the amount available for taxation and other sources, including balances brought forward in the prior fiscal years, must equal the total appropriation of expenditures in the year. This action was requested pursuant to FSS 166.2415, which allows the town to modify its budget within 60 days following the end of the fiscal year. The sole purpose of this requested action is to provide an appropriation such that accounts for account categories are not overspent. So we don't have any accounts in the red at the end of the year. This action is not intended to fine-tune the estimated revenues, appropriations, and fund balances, but to assure the council and citizens that sufficient revenues and other sources can be used to balance appropriations or estimated expenditures. These will likely change as revenues and accounts payable invoices for September continue to be received through the end of November. All remaining monies in the various operating funds are left in those funds to meet unexpected future expenditures. Now, in the general fund, if we look at it, revenues in the proposed budget amendment increased the town's adopted supplemental budget by approximately $117,954. We estimate the general fund actual revenue received would increase by 12.6 thousand. And if you look as an example, if you look in your general fund estimated revenues, for example, you see that state revenue sharing is going to be coming in at $7,060 higher. And another example, household sales tax is going to be coming in at $4,700 higher. The original appropriation of $523,752 transfer from fund balance is specifically presented in the budget format for purposes of informing that actual revenues are insufficient for the budget and is necessary to use unassigned fund balance. Transfer from fund balance is never reflected as a revenue and ledger transaction. While $526,000 was transferred to the CIP and solid waste funds as expenditures and is reflected in the ledger transaction detail, other general fund revenues were used. The end of the year budget amendment also reflects an additional $105,326 use of unassigned general fund balance used along with other revenues to reimburse the transportation fund. That's for the Northwell Road. Appropriation or expenditure charges are recommended to assure that all accounts or account categories have enough budget to exceed anticipated invoices that will come in after September and before the external auditor completes their work. The most significant impact is the $141,834 transfer to the transportation fund as a reimbursement for providing OGEN on a portion of North Road, which the Waxahachie Road Control District has yet provided title to the right-of-way. This action was a result of the fiscal year 2012 audit report. Various other changes are recommended for the operating budget that reflects a net estimated expenditure reduction of $23,887. That's for the entire general fund. The capital improvement fund. Revenues in this fund have been provided through transfers from other funds. During the 2013 fiscal year, Town Council anticipated several projects that would consume in excess of $1,312,466 appropriations. The assigned capital improvement fund CIP fund balance was $912,466, and the general fund transfer of $400,000 was completed for the additional revenue. Town council did not undertake appropriation or expenditure changes for the various projects during the fiscal year. Therefore, we modified the appropriation request to equal the revenue that was accepted in the CIP fund from the general fund. Within the CIP fund, there exists a balance of $1,400,000 at the end of fiscal year 2013 available for projects for fiscal year 2014. Town council reallocated and approved $1,802,564 in projects, and is anticipated the town will transfer transportation money primarily through the funding the CIP. In terms of the transportation and solid waste funds, no significant revenues and appropriations or expenditure changes. So with that, I think that kind of gives you a very detailed review of many of the changes that Bill personally worked on and completed for you.
Any questions for Mark?
Yeah, of course I will.
Okay.
Start here and go again.
Does anybody else have any? Okay. We'll start it in with you, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Mark, you know I came in the office and sat and through a lot of things, and some of my questions were answered. Some of them don't need to be changes to the budget amendment, but there are two, and there is one item that I disagree with the approach, and the other is that I think as a council we want to make our unassigned fund balance as big as it can be, and our assigned fund balances to be truly representative of what we have planned, specifically capital. In the end of this fiscal year, or during the fiscal year, we put $400,000 into capital from our unassigned fund, which now has a balance of $1.4 million. Next year, our budget calls for over $1.4 million in projects, but less than $1 million of those total comes out is a general fund versus gas tax revenue source. So about half of what we'll have next year is going to come out of gas tax, and the other half is already there and comes out of our unassigned funds. Now, the conversation I had, which you were part of, was that I need to see how we can move that $400,000 back into unassigned and truly leave in our fund balance for capital the beginning balance of what we'll need next year, and not something that's has another $400,000 in it, because we don't need the money into an assigned use category. We need the flexibility to put whatever excess we have into an unassigned category. Now, I looked at the budget change, and I have a recommended change that would put that money back. And I apologize, we don't have Bill here tonight, and I won't mean to put you in that position. But he didn't get an answer to my question either between last time we met. I did raise the question, and I understand I didn't get an answer because of what was going on in the family. But I specifically asked about that $400,000. So I'm trying to explain to the council, but I need you to, as best you can, tell me if we cannot simply make our journal entries, which we're still making journal entries to the year, undo the $400,000 that we put into our revenue category, and undo the $400,000 we took into the transfer category, and then in the capital fund, undo the amount of money that came into the revenue, and how much money we have identified as our project $400,000. Actually, there's $500,000, I think, that was identified in the capital plan. So to me, it was simple from an accounting perspective, but it may not be something that you can tell me why we can't do that. But we can then make those budget adjustments in this time frame.
As I understand it, in terms of talking with Bill, $400,000 can't be moved back because that budget year closed out. That was the original $400,000 that was in the first year. The 912 that was kicked, 912,466, which was kicked back from the 1312,466, was based upon projects that are no longer in place. If if you look down under the appropriations, you'll see the development of the town hall alternatives is gone. We're not doing the road and drainage, and we're not doing, we're doing the traffic light on Okeechobee. So basically, that's been reallocated for this year. But he indicated that he can't put it back because that year is closed.
Last year being in 2013,
Well,
we made this entry in 2013. It's 400,000. The original million is in there in 12. That's exactly my concern is that we let this go, then it has to stay there next year. Now, if you can explain to me that we can move it next year, like in the next quarter, quickly, then we could forego this. But if we can't, my concern is that you stick that 400,000 in there. It's not available to the town to use on anything other than capital. And if we lost that opportunity by going past this budget change, that's my concern. Because we don't want money tied up. If you can't, don't have use for it right now, but you have something else that maybe you want to use it on, which, and by the way, unassigned funds you can use anywhere. You can build a building, you can grade a road, you can build a road, you can do all those things with unassigned funds.
no, I understand your point, and it's a good one as far as reserved and unreserved fund balances. I think those are things that we need to point out in the future. But, I mean, I looked at the current budget we have, 1.8 million, and I mean, we have earmarked uses for it, so, I mean.
Yeah, but Mark, the money is where the money came from. We're gonna have a $900,000 transfer, or 800-something thousand into the capital funds from gas tax money to represent that portion of our capital fund that we can fund from gas tax money. We didn't have that ability in the past to identify that, so we just took it all out of unassigned funds. Now we have the ability to move money into a category from gas tax money and cover our capital. But I don't want to lose the opportunity to put the 400,000 back into unassigned, because that, unfortunately, what that puts us in is if we have expenditures that we have to dip into our unassigned, we'll have to raise taxes. And I'm not interested in doing that. So I'd like to make sure we head off any kind of a box we build for ourselves before we get there. I think we ought to be able to make the budget adjustment. I don't know if we have to do a CIP element, change what we had, adjust what we had in 2013, which we have been told, I believe. We can make those changes for what we have in that element.
Well, I'll talk with him some more, and I'll see if I can get you further detail if this still isn't clear, but I guess the question, the concern I have is with the new budget that we're, the current year that we're in, if you're concerned about fund balances and projects changing, and I think during the year, we still have the ability to amend by resolution the current CIP to move monies where we need to move.
That's the question, Mark, because I thought I just heard you say we missed that opportunity. It was 2012. We can't go back to 2012 and adjust. This is 2013 that we're getting ready to close the door on. If we can't, once we've done it, and we've done it already, if we can't undo it, then in 2014, if we're stuck, that puts us in a bind on 400,000. If Bill can tell you that we can move that money, make the adjustment so that the 400,000 comes out of capital, back into unassigned general fund, because the rest of the money we plan on paying, on transferring from sales tax, from gas tax, we'll put enough money into that plan, plus the million that we had back in 2011. In other words, if we do all the transfers that we have money planned to do from gas tax, we will have an extra $400,000, $426,000 according to the numbers we have in that schedule, more than we need, and we've assigned it to a capital plan where there's a lot of projects in there, but those projects are hard to make come pass in the year that we plan on, as we all know. So we don't need the money in there extra sitting around for many people. We'll put it in there as we need it, and hopefully we can get it from gas tax money as we earn it. But I'm concerned, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, my motion would be to make these changes, and that's what we approve. And if we can word it such that we can't do that, but we can make the change, let's say in January with a budget adjustment that would take care of moving that 400,000 back, then that would be also acceptable. My concern is we've missed You'll miss the opportunity at the end of November. And that's a real issue. That's $400,000. That's more than 150% of what we collect in 1 year's taxes.
I hear what you're saying. I'll check with him, but I believe the reason why it's at 400,000 because that's what it was when 212 was closed. I need to.
No, the 400,000 came this year. We made the transfer this year in 2013. It's on the
No, if you remember the
chart.
first budget year was 1.4. The first budget year was 1.4.
We made it 1.4.
Yeah.
Right, but that was with the $400,000 transfer this year.
Yes.
I'm just saying undo that transfer. Put it back.
All right, and now I can't tell you for certain that can happen, but I'll check into it.
Okay, Tom? All right.
I hear what Jim's saying. I agree with him as far as the idea goes of if you're going to be doing road projects, and especially since the road projects that we have are over several years, why move the money today from one fund into there when you're going to be getting the money to pay in the future? It's like saying I'm going to do something 3 years from now, but if I don't have the cash right now, I can't do it. If that's what the budgeting is saying, well, then maybe we have to adjust that very large collecting canal number so as not to have to make the 400,000, since that number in fact was just the number that encompassed all the rest of the projects, we call that. And that's how it got to be so large. So maybe that's what we want to do, and make a change in CIP. I don't know if that's what, Jim might have another place to go with it. But if that's the issue, that we're going to do it by funding it over time, then I think the way to handle it from the budget point of view is to reduce the CIP so that you don't have that CIP budget to make the transfer for it. If then budgeting rules require you to transfer it from somewhere to balance it, you know what I'm saying, with the expenditures, and that's apparently what we're running into. And I understand what you're saying, you don't want to take the 400 grand and lock it up in an account that we can't ever use for some other bit. But many of those things, I think, could probably fall into capital items. Most of the things that we would spend a lot of money on would probably be a capital item. If we decided to, whatever, build a town hall or whatever like that, that would probably be in the CIP, and, we could use that thing for. So, while I do see your point, let's.
Changing the CIP won't accomplish what I'm saying. If you note on the sheet that I've asked them to put together, kind of the budget changes, it takes a look at the balance sheet. And the funds that are in the balance sheet, it tells us that based on our budget in the year 2013-14, we're going to have $426,000 in there that we do not have identified to any project in that year. And it came from unassigned general funds.
But we're not really spending the 1.8 in 2013, 2014, so that amount should, if it is over the course of time, we should,
Well, we have
that has to be adjusted.
We have 1.8 planned for the 13-14 year. Spending it is another challenge, but we have a plan. So we have to budget for what we plan.
All right.
So I just don't, I don't know, I don't know how we posture this, because if we miss the opportunity, then I think you understand, we're locking up 400,000. And if we had the need to find 400,000 on a temporary basis, in an emergency, you can't use it.
My only concern is this, though, you really do have to act on this tonight, because if you don't, we're going to have an audit finding against us, because if we end up with expenditures, line items that are in the red, we'll get an audit finding, and then we'll probably have the state come down on us, because that's really what we're looking at.
All right.
That's the most important thing, is to make sure all your revenues and your expenditures
Okay.
are balancing.
So to get this to pass tonight, can we take this 400,000 and change it over?
Bill indicated to me no. But
I mean, our council basically makes those decisions, correct?
I would think that what Bill's advice is that if we do that would be against the audit procedures, and I don't think it's proper for us to do things that
All right.
contravention, especially being told that it's wrong.
Well, I guess I'm looking at both. I understand what Jim's saying. We tie up the money, all of a sudden we need it, and he's saying we can't
But
get
I
it.
don't know that that's true either.
yeah.
Well, no, you're exactly right, but let's say it is. I mean, just for argument's sake, we approve something and then we find out later, well,
what Jim said is true. So
Let me ask
I
this
guess
question.
that's.
Let me
that's
ask
all
this
I'm
question. If we can change these budget items, why can't we change the CIP? But Jim's saying changing the CIP isn't the solution, so I don't really get what is the solution.
Now, part of what we would do is actually address part of the CIP. The 400,000 flows through multiple times. We take it as, we identify it as a revenue in our general fund. We transfer it out as a transfer to capital fund. We do it twice, and then then we go ahead and put it into CIP as a revenue item from the general fund. And we take it out as we've identified it, or we've identified it as a budget, as a development of town hall. So that's where the 400,000 bounces. You've got an actual charge all the way through until you actually spend the money. And then you've got a budget item to represent each one of those planned line items. So you've got 4 budget item lines, four budget amounts, 400,000. So my approach was, we change the budget in all those cases where the 400,000 is represented. And since we've made actual entries, we have to go reverse them. And you still can do that in this fiscal year,
Well,
which has
see,
to
but then
close.
you're getting into a whole level of accounting as opposed to the budget document itself. I mean, without me going back and going through all the ledgers and everything, and taking a look at this, I can't address that.
Well, then, I'll tell you, this is my motion. I don't want to make it yet, because I got another item we need to talk about. But it would be that we make the budget change for each of those 4 positions in this budget adjustment. That this is the last for this year. I would make that adjustment. It's simple in some cases, you can see it, in other cases, it's part of a bigger number. But the other item, the last of my 2, is that we pushed very hard to get the letter roads transferred to our town by the end of September 2013. So it was in our fiscal year. We paid $28,000 plus in November of the fiscal year 2013 to help subsidize the road costs for those letter roads. Now, we got told we have to move the 141 back because we did North Road without having it transferred to us. But we did transfer the ABC, AC, North, South, and D roads. So the 28,000 should come out of gas tax money, as far as I'm concerned, as a capital improvement. We didn't have that knowledge until September, last week of September, matter of fact, when the quick claim deeds were processed and recorded by the county. So ownership is identified at that point. We changed that item. It doesn't affect the budget unless we don't have enough money to cover where we put it. But that's a procedural thing the council has tried to do for many times, which we also did with the North Road. Take money out of gas tax, pay for it that way. We were told we couldn't do that for 2012 because we didn't have ownership. We have ownership now. So on our schedule of expenditures, we have $28,893 and change, no change, sorry, even, that we paid out. And that represented the subsidy that we did for those 4 letter roads. And we're gonna have it budgeted this year, 2013-14 also. So that's coming out of our gas tax money. It's identified that way. But it should also, in my mind, since we have ownership in 2013, and that's the criteria that we were told was exercised by our auditor, that this should be part of that also, which means the budget have to move so you can move the item. You can't pay it out under, leave the budget there and then pay it out on another line and say, oh, I'd like to move it for you, but I don't have the budget so we can make the change. So this is the time to do this. This is our last shot.
Okay, Mark, you want to answer that? Okay.
Well, I think the position the management company took was that 28,000 which we then provided for, the interpretation was that was not eligible out of gas tax because what it was doing was, it was originally proposed, it was trying to equalize the payments of the assessments for all the roadways. So my understanding is that's not gas tax eligible. Now, I know what you're saying about getting the roads, now we have them, but, I don't know if that changes I'll look at the interpretation of it
I
for
was
the
going to
future.
say, if the expenditure is made in the fiscal year and we owned it during the fiscal year, when I say own it, we got the title from the district, we got it within the same fiscal year, so it's a matter of just reimbursing within the same fiscal year.
Well, that may be the case.
It's because we're not paying in arrears like people who pay assessments.
Here's what we can do on that specifically. We already have precedent. If we do it the way I'm asking, and the auditor doesn't like it, they'll have us suggest it in the final fiscal year, which is what we're doing this year. Part of this budget change is taking into account $140,000 we're going to take out of general fund and not out of gas tax fund. So we can make that change for the budget, put it into the other account, wherever we charge it from, and gas tax account under the transportation fund. And then have to make the journal entry to move it, but first do the budget. You gotta have the budget change, that's all we're doing here, changing the budget. But if there's a journal entry that needs to be made, once that budget's changed, then you can still make it. You still have another week to week and a half. And I know we have to pass it tonight, so that's my recommendation. That would be my motion, there's two parts.
All right, Tom.
I would truly counsel against going, Bill has a lot of experience in this far more than I do in this subject. And if he thinks that these are the proper ways to do things, I'm going to stay with that.
All right. I guess the only way we do it is we make a motion and see if it passes, and then we make another motion. Anything else? Because these are some concerns that, we don't want to dig ourselves in a hole, and then next year someone say, well, you can't pay it out of that because you already approved the budget, and it happened last year.
Well, it's important that this gets done, but what I would say is, obviously, these are still lingering questions that Councilman Rocket rightly has, and I'd like to be able to address them further. It's going to take a lot more research on my part. I don't know if Bill could have addressed these totally at the top of his head tonight. I think he probably could have, but, I'm not hands on books. I'd have to go into a book myself and see. So a suggestion is, if you want to move forward in passing this, and we'll try to come back to you with more detail that hopefully addresses Councilman Rocket, we can attempt to do that.
If we move forward and pass it tonight, Joe, does that negate the ability to make some adjustments?
This is our last shot tonight on this budget.
It's the last shot to adopt the budget from the standpoint of making all the corrections you have to, making sure that your revenues and your expenditures balance.
Can I ask a question? Because I don't like to get myself involved in the numbers game, so to speak, but with the questions that are being asked with the 400,000 and with the 28, is it possible that by amending this tonight and you just fix the entries and that the current year's budget can be amended to find that $400,000 that was needed, or the $28,000 that was needed? Because you can always, my understanding is you can amend during the current fiscal
I think
year.
these things can be amended in FY14 if there
I
is
thought I
an
heard you
issue. Yeah,
say
there
you
is.
couldn't do it for 12.
Well, the 12 is closed.
I know, 13 will be closed after tonight,
Right, but
from our standpoint of the council.
I hate to get
Let me ask
involved.
you a question.
Okay, hold on.
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
If right now we were to say the CIP budget is zero, would the money all go back where it went? We're not obligated to spend it once we put it in the capital improvement. We could decide right now to take it all back. If we took it all back now, in this year, which is not that year that we're talking about, which is, you remember, we're talking about something that's done and gone. If we were to change it to zero now, would we have all our money back? Yes. So what are we talking about? It's really trying to, and I don't think that the money is locked up because you can reduce the budget. You can reduce the budget. There's nobody saying here you can't go below 1.8. So I don't know what we're doing, except really dancing on the head of a pin to try to decide, is it here, there, or the other place, but it isn't anywhere because it's past there and it's in the bank and it's not even in these separated funds in the bank. So the whole thing is really an extremely tedious issue that I understand where Jim's coming from and not wanting the number tied up, but I don't think it is. We have what we had in gas tax, we've spent what we've spent, and what we haven't, we still have. And that's all there is.
All right.
If I'm wrong, I'm going to be an error on the safe side. But I don't believe I am. I thought I heard say we couldn't do anything about 2012, that was done.
The year's closed.
So as far as that goes, we couldn't do anything about the capital money that we put in there in 2012. My concern is we can't do anything about capital money.
Wasn't it
13, just the 400,000 is this year's activity. This
Well,
fiscal
that's
year.
still the books that relates to the audit. What we're trying to do, we're talking about the budget. As you get past the 60-day period, that after the end of the fiscal year, all you're trying to do is make sure all your revenues and your line items are in black.
But you also make your journal entries through November.
That's true.
That closes the year.
That's why I suggested we could try to get the information to you.
Well, unfortunately, I had asked these questions, and I understand I don't have answers, but I didn't get an answer. That's why I spent this extra time to go in the office and sit down and go over these things, so we wouldn't have to cover it here. And I'd have answers that we could say yes or no. The real answer is, how do we make it happen? And the only way I can do that now, and best of my knowledge, is we make these budget changes for the 400,000 in those 4 places. We make the budget change for the 28 plus in those 2 places, and we go forward with the budget that way, and that would be my motion. And I can be a little more specific. I'll make a
All right,
motion
Mike, you can
that
answer.
would make those changes.
Well, you have a motion, I don't know.
All right.
I can speak after you fix the
All right.
procedural posture.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. All right.
I just had another question, and again, forgive me, numbers. There was a question about the $400,000 coming from the fiscal 11-12 budget, and then it not being able to be changed now?
No, it's about the 400,000 is the 12-13 budget. Is what I thought I heard, that we had done something in 10 and 11, 12 that we could not change today
Right, because
because it was close.
you had finished with 12, so whatever was done with 12 was done with 12.
Right?
So, whatever Councilman Rocky is suggesting with the 400,000, I think, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but is the concern that the effect of that would be to go back and undo part of the fiscal year 12 budget? Because that's where, okay, I just want to make sure that
No, it's
we're
nothing to
not
do.
doing anything that would change a budget that's already closed out,
No,
which is fiscal year 12.
no, this is all
Okay.
activity in our current budget.
That you couldn't do.
Right.
Well, if the money's not spent, what are you saying? We can't
No,
take it out in the future?
it's not about spending, it's about just the budget, and
All
so
right.
amending a budget. I just want to make sure that the operation that Councilman Rocket sets part of his motion doesn't involve going back and changing something from the final fiscal 12 budget.
It just has to do with,
12-13.
It's all in the budget that just ended September 30th, 2013.
all right, we have a
That's what I
motion,
want to make sure.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it?
You understand the motion? Okay. No, I just want to make sure, I'm not trying to, I want to make sure that the
All right.
motion's clear.
Sue would like to,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, may I have a repeat of the motion? please?
Sure. A motion that we approve the budget change with the following adjustments. Concerning $400,000 that is in the CIP fund, kept coming from the general fund. There are 4 line items on our budget that have to be adjusted. And the revenues is transfer from fund balance. That needs to be reduced by $400,000. On our expenditures, again, we're still working in general fund. We reduced the budgeted transfer to capital projects, $400,000. Moving to the capital plan or capital budget. Under revenues, contribution from general fund, you reduced that by $400,000, making it 0. Under the annual budget, you take $400,000 out of the town hall alternatives, make it up $100,000 just to balance the $400,000. It'll leave $100,000 left, it's
Jim,
$500,000.
it's already coming out at 500,000 coming out.
So rather than change the $500,000, I have these $100,000, we have to put someplace else, it's rather complicated. So that it's just a budget change to balance the $400,000.
Can I just ask another question? I think I know the answer to this, but
Yes.
again, just to make sure that I understand it and that Mark understands too, is that the net result of your motion is still going to be that all funds balance for the fiscal year just ending September 30th, 2013. There won't be any imbalances in any of the funds.
Correct, it just, there will have to be a following journal entry for any of those items that are reflected in the actuals. There are two $400,000 contribution from general fund in capital. That was an actual entry. And we have an entry that was in transfer to capital.
Okay, do you have that, Sue? No.
That doesn't have that information, but we don't, that's not part of the budget change. It's just part of the adjustments that would make. Since we're trying to match.
No, that's part of your motion.
As part of our motion, we have to make the journal entries to balance, but that's in keeping with the concept of the budget entry, the budget amendment that we're trying to match as best we can. Expenditures are covered accordingly.
Okay.
So
We
it's
have a
not
motion,
reversed.
and
So
that's
the other
what you
piece-
seconded, Ron?
Yeah, hold on a
Second
second,
for
Mr. Mayor.
discussion.
In response to Sue, there was another specific piece of that. There was a second line item that we changed. It's the aids to government agencies grant, budget of $28,893 under expenditures. That gets moved to our transportation fund. Where the sheet went, and we have to put a budget in there. We could call it the same thing. We need to put the 28,000 into the transportation fund. All this nets zero, but it does involve different funds.
Okay.
That's the detail.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion on it? Tom?
I'd like to say that just totally disrespecting what it is. Bill thinks it ought to be done, and that's what we hire these people here to do, and they're professionals, and he's one of, the most credentialed people in the state on the subject. I think is silly.
I don't appreciate the comment. It's not silly. You may think it's silly, but it's not.
I
Guys,
thought it was silly.
Tom, okay, we got a motion and a second. He can say what he wants, but anyway, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call vote.
It's a resolution.
All right, Sue? Sue?
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Councilman Tiro?
Nay.
Vice Mayor Tiro, sorry. Is that a yes?
Nay.
No. Councilman Goldsmith?
Nope.
Mayor Browning?
And I'm going to say nay because we got to pass something tonight. So we can't go 2-2 and fight about it all night. So motion fails. I'll entertain a new motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the budget as recommended by staff.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Tom, seconded by Ron. Further discussion? All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Councilman Goldsmith?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Tiro?
Aye.
Councilman Roderick?
No.
Mayor Browning?
Yes. Budget passed. All right.
Take a break.
Yeah, let's take a quick break. One comment before we break. I really wish we had got this resolved before we came in here. And I know that they have the, an emergency, but to come under this and not, and have to pass something with questions is not covered.
I believe Bill thought the memo covered it, but obviously.
All right. Take a break.
That's why I wanted to do
So I just got
Hey, we need more coffee. Let's go pinch. Had enough coffee in it, or? Yeah, we
All right. All right, moving to administrative update. Mark?
Thank you, Your Honor. Brief report tonight. One thing I guess most of you may be aware of, unfortunately, Councilman Van has some personal issues that he's taking care of, but he will not, obviously, he's not here tonight. He will miss our December 3rd meeting, and more than likely, he'll miss the meeting that's scheduled for January 7th. So I know that, that we have a lot of things coming up, especially some of them are planning nature that require 4 council votes. So what I'm asking tonight is based upon that situation, it's likely he'll be available on the 14th of January or the 21st. What I'm suggesting is that we take our January 7th meeting and either have one meeting on the 21st, or move it to the 14th, and we can have back-to-back meetings if you want to, but that's really the issue I wanted to raise tonight. Take a look at.
All right. You want a motion now for that, or discussion on it?
Well, it would be good. I mean, we could do it on the December meeting if you want some time to think about it, but you'll know you're gonna be at 4 on December 3rd. Sure.
All right. Ron?
Somebody kind of needs to explain to me, because I got a note from Phil Liang and Ryan Scott. Basically, he's going in tomorrow for the surgery. He's got 3 compressed vertebrae. Okay, they're going to remove one, but he's coming home Saturday.
I think we've got to be careful with the HIPAA laws and stuff.
That's why I didn't really.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, I think it's kind of early to say that he's not going to be in January.
Okay. I think there were some other issues that are in January, including myself, for the 7th. So we were wondering about the possibility of moving to the 14th, and either have one meeting in January, or if we needed a second one, we could make that choice on the 14th. But that's one of the issues. So if Ryan can't make it, and I know I could. All right, so consensus, we go with the 14th?
January, yeah.
All
I
right.
have a question. Do you think we got everything covered for December with the one meeting, right? That you can anticipate?
Well, that's a very fluid agenda right now. I mean, we're still, Jim Fleischman and Mike are still working with developers as it relates to those PUDs, making sure that the agreements are in place. It's going to be a heavy agenda because you're only meeting that month, but there's going to be some things dropping in and off. But I think, for the most part, if the 4 of you are there for December 3rd, we have what we need to handle the last one.
We can always schedule the 17th, part of something we can't get done.
Sure.
Okay, so we got December 3rd is our plan. I know we're working towards one a month, but we have set meetings based on what our requirements are. We commonly have 2 meetings. So January 14th will be the next meeting after that, at this point, what we anticipate.
Yes.
I think, in my vision is, you know, I know we try to do it one meeting a month. I kind of like Tom's idea of the second one being for workshop items or things like that. The 2 months that I think in a year that I really appreciate one a month is November and December. Because, you know, you've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, people travel, all kinds of stuff. So those 2 months, you know, I always like to do it one meeting, but that's just me.
And one other consideration you could think about for the future, for going into 2014, I know this was also raised at that time, was you can reserve your second meeting of the month only for planning and zoning. And then that way you deal with all those, and you have your first meeting of the month for all your other business. If you don't have any planning and zoning items that month, then you have the ability to cancel the meeting.
And that might be a good thing to do. Maybe even every other one, but we need to deal with that. There's some things that we need to deal with. So, all right, so consensus-wise, January 14th. Anything else on that?
Yeah, I have one other item, Mayor, and this one, I think, this is something that I didn't expect to get this today. Got it late in the day, and I just had a chance to briefly look at it, but we did receive, our traffic engineers came back with the cost estimates on the Okeechobee signal, Okeechobee ND signal. And what it appears to show, just jumping to their conclusion, is that for a, what they call a strain pull signal, which is the wire signal, including construction and design, they have estimated the cost for that to be $290,944. For a mast arm signal, including the construction and design, they've estimated that to be at $423,010. So what I'd like to do is, I will get the council copies of this, but I'd just like a day or so that I could try to take a look at this and go through. I haven't had a chance to look at it in more detail. And then, of course, the next step would be, they provided me some information relative to working with Dan Weisberg at the county to see about, of course, going with the strain pole as opposed to the mast arm, which is obviously over $100,000 in additional cost for
voted to go with the cheaper version. And never suggested that we would go with the honor.
That's correct.
Okay.
But you have to have both cost estimates.
I understand, yeah, the answer is
Yeah.
good to know what it would cost us in addition, but I think the council had voted to say that's what we have to do. We just gotta figure out how to make
The
it
key here is
count.
how to make the two.
And the nice thing
frame will
about,
happen.
having it done down the street just recently is, why not us?
And by our.
It's a smaller road.
So,
Okay. All right, moving to old business.
I got one question for you.
Okay.
Good idea about the two prices, because if we had to go to the county, I don't think they would, if they decided to pay for us, I don't think they'd have to pay $123 extra.
sure.
Mark, just a couple of questions. Can you give us a brief update or the Sadar trucking situation? When can we finalize that? And will it be coming to the council for us to make a decision?
Yes, the town attorney and I have been working on that particular matter, and this will be coming before you at your meeting on December 3rd. We'll be bringing you information to try to reconcile the contract, the invoice, the difference, the invoices that we're currently working on.
All right, any other questions? All right, moving to old business, 8A.
Mr. Mayor, members of the town council, at the last meeting, we discussed the special bill that was proposed and written regarding the roadways within the town. One of the, and what was discussed at the last meeting was a follow-up to the workshop. There would be a second special act that would address the maintenance easements on the other side of the canals, but also provide for their use for recreational trail purposes and equestrian, and provide for state law guidelines on the use of those areas for grant applications. And so the language, the bill was prepared, it modeled very similar to the one you saw before for the roads. Only it addresses, like I said, the maintenance easement on the other side of the canal. And it provides the same mechanism for filing of a map and whatnot. But it also provides for, that authorizes the special district to allow that to be used as an equestrian trail. Remember, the district is limited in what they can do, but what their charter says they can do. It's not like a municipality which has home rule to do anything in this area. They have to be authorized to allow. So this last paragraph allows them to provide for the use of their maintenance easements that are dedicated pursuant to this special act used for equestrian purposes. The mechanism for that is a permit that would be granted from the district. It's similar to what they did when we did the road improvements, because the district's primary concern in talking with their attorneys is always going to be their ability to maintain the canals from these areas. So it would be a permit. But this provides that those permits that are issued for perpetual use by the public will be sufficient to satisfy any control requirements that state grant applications would require. So I prepared this and sent to their attorneys. They put it on the agenda last night. It was my understanding that it passed the board, so it can be filed unless this council has any objections to it being filed. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions for Mike? Got one card, Nina Corning.
Nina Corning Road, thank you so much for considering this bill, bill number 2 for the greenways. I do have, and actually just spoke with the attorney, and I'm just going to say this out loud just so for everybody to know. In bill 2, item number 3, I was a bit worried about the language where, I'm going to read it to you. The district shall have the authority to issue permits to the town of Los Angeles to construct and maintain such recreational trails within the maintenance easement. Any permit issued to the district for perpetual use, and it does say perpetual use, by the public for recreational trail purposes shall be deemed to satisfy any and all current or future state grant requirements for property controlled by the town. And I believe John Ryan added county as well, instead of just the state. I'm a little bit worried that when we asked for grants from the EPA the last time we had the issue of control, they were looking for something like the 99-year lease or something along those lines, and I just want to make really sure and have us double check that that language will hold up when we're talking about issuing a permit. Just to make sure that it is going to pass muster when it comes to asking for these grants. That we don't go through this whole exercise and then find that we should have used one particular word differently. Again, I'm very grateful that this is going forward. It passed 3-0 last night. Appreciate that very much. Suggestion was made that I do go up to Tallahassee, and I will consider that once I know what the timeline is and so forth, and help present the bill.
Okay, thank you, Nina. All right, any other comments? I know you've got perpetual use in there. You know, I think that's enough. All right. Yes, Jim.
Mike, when I read this, the last sentence was specific and crucial. You put it in there for a reason. Basically said that this statute meets the requirements by passing it, so that we have for state grant purposes. You put that in there, whatever those purposes are, whatever the grant requirements are, this statute says we've met that with this perpetual.
What would happen, in my view, is that as part of any grant application, there's a requirement that there is some documentation to show property control. We would have the permit, which shows that would be in perpetuity, because that's what we would require, and that's what we would request of the district. And then we would provide this special act that says this permit, says perpetuity, satisfies this requirement for property control for the town of Italy.
Okay. All right, Ron?
Mike, just one other question. Is there any possibility that we could get a grant from anybody besides the state? In other words, a federal grant or a county grant? In other words, should we put where it covers anybody that could possibly give us a grant?
Well, I don't know that we could, by state law, tell federal agency what they would take as property control. But if we got an opportunity to do a federal grant, we would obviously go try to work within this special act, this bill, and see if that was sufficient for them. And if it wasn't, we have to work with the districts, because this gives them the authority to give us permits that allow us to use the rights. This says permit. If we need to add something like issue permits or other authority or just authorized by appropriate documentation, we can do that maybe as we go through this process. But we couldn't say by state law, I don't think, that the federal government must take this.
All right, thank you, Mike. We don't need a decision on this.
Unless you're going to tell me not to do it, we're going to move forward, because we didn't expect to have this meeting tonight anyway. You had given me direction to work with the district, do it, have a very clear meeting, so we're going to move forward.
All right, update regarding Minto West Lane.
You may know more than I do, Mayor, because I've not been able to get any information as far as copies of the applications. I've had Jim Fleischman contact the county, and there were some issues regarding sufficiency, and they were going to provide more information. But as of this morning, it wasn't posted on the internet, so I haven't seen the actual application. Like I said, there may be folks here that have better information than I do, but I haven't.
Okay, I think the issue, and Dennis did a good job mentioning it, the issue is that they are trying to reach out with this 5-mile deal. And the ag enclave law that they were basing their whole thing on never mentioned a distance. It said surrounding communities. And now in their application, they're going not by surrounding communities, but they're going out to 5 miles, and they want to cherry pick whatever development touches that 5 miles and say if they allow 0 lot line homes, then we should be able to do that. And that's what they're using as their argument to approve the homes going from what's approved now. Right now, they're allowed 3,995 homes. That was a compromise. Yeah, 2 times.
2,000.
2,000 was what it should have been. They ended up, the county in their grandizing gave them an extra 1,000 homes. Now I make up my own words. Now they want 7,500 homes on the same area, which means all those 7,500 homes, the construction for them, the traffic coming from them, will be going down Okeechobee as the primary road. It's also going to affect North Lane, it's also going to affect Southern, but we're going to get hammered on Okeechobee. But trust me, it's not the 7,500 homes. All of Walsey's Grove out there, that's at least half again bigger than what Calvary Judge had, I think it's around 7,000 acres, are going to be looking at the same density. So if this development gets 2 per acre, you're looking at another 14,000 homes just on that property. So we could very easily double or go 2.5 times what the housing is. So it's something we need to deal with. I think what we're going to need to do is get Mike to go to the Attorney General and try to get a ruling on what is, what's the term, neighboring, surrounding property. Because the Ag Enclave did not mention, you know, and they're literally wanting to take that 5 miles and it jumps them into Madison Green and a couple other little developments that have higher density and say that's what we want for our whole project, ignoring all of Loxahatchee Groves, that's 1 in 5, ignoring all of the acreage that are 1 1/4 acres, ignoring all of Fox Trail and Deer Run, which are 5-acre parcels, ignoring basically all the others, and just nitpick or pick and choose the little ones and say, well, that one gives us more and this one gives us more. And, you know, ignoring the natural areas and everything else. So this is going to be something that we're going to have to join together. And you know, I would encourage everybody to stay abreast. You know, just stay up with the information, and we'll try to keep you in contact. So Dennis has got one, I know, and Nina.
Can you turn Mike loose on this now? Go ahead and start the process.
Well, I would like to see him go ahead and get something from the Attorney General if we can.
I would need some formal direction. I mean, obviously I can engage conversation with the county attorney as well and see where they're going
Right.
with this interpretation. I have not spoken with the county attorney on this issue.
Okay.
I have not spoken with the applicant's attorney, obviously, on this issue, but more importantly, the county attorney.
Right.
I was gonna say, I mean, we don't wanna be taking a lead and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars here. I mean, come on, we got other things within our deal. We don't have money to fight them. I'm sure their legal budget exceeds our entire budget. Just consider that. And the county, if the county's gonna give it away anyway, we're blowing money. And I'm not trying to argue with you in any way, Dennis. I'm just saying, we don't have money.
Right.
Before everybody gets all excited.
If we're just looking for a call on the Attorney General, should we get them on our side? We're really not looking at it. We're not looking at challenge.
When I hear turning an attorney loose, that's to me a scary concept.
I don't. Ron?
That can run up to the bill.
And I expressed at the last council meeting that I agree with Tom. We don't need to make another mistake 2 times in a row. Now, I personally, I agree that we need to fight it, but I think we need to fight it with people and votes and put pressure on the county committee. I believe we're roughly close to 5,000 or more that we've already invested into it. I personally think we should set a limit. We should set a limit where we won't go exceeding that. Now, you know, 5,000 is too much for me, but that's what the people want, and we'll spend it. But I think we need to set a limit how much we're going to spend on this one cause. And Dennis, you may have a suggestion on how much you're going to spend as a taxpayer.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dennis.
Apologies.
Hold on here. Great, a lot of good things are from. My comment about turning Mike loose on this Attorney General item would be that with an estimate from him, we could put a cap on it if we have to, but as Mr. Mayor, as you have said, and I'm sure all this council realizes in their heart, this is the biggest, most important thing that we have on our list to do. It's gonna be on the top of the list, most important. So, because it means what Loxahatchee Groves look like today, it changes tomorrow. If we don't put everything we can into this, now we're not gonna do it alone, we should do it in conjunction with all the surrounding communities, because everybody's in that boat, and we ought to be able to cram them in those buses together with us. But if we need to set an amount, Mike, I would just ask after Dennis is done, that we can take this up officially, but have in mind the number that you could make sure you stay under and maybe make it 50% of it, but get us a big enough number. Thank you.
Okay, Dennis?
Well, y'all had Mr. Cirillo do an AGO for you at the beginning of this year. And, that was a full, very well written, and the Attorney General came back with an answer as it dealt with setbacks for ag properties. And that was an AGO, very simple. And this is a very simple AGO as well. So whatever might build the town for that AGO ought to be about the same. And as far as going on the record is how much money you're going to spend, sort of like, reminds me of some of our current people in the White House saying, yeah, we're going to fight this war until we withdraw in the middle of 2014. And then after that, you're on your own. So that's just sort of raising the surrender flag early before you actually surrender. The point I wanted to make is Commissioner Santa Maria's staff had county planning give them a number of home sites that have already been approved in Palm Beach County. Remember back when we were becoming a town, we had to go through the Beaver population estimates. According to Beaver, Palm Beach County has sufficient properties already approved for development as single-family homes, including workforce housing, through 2024. So we need 7,000 homes on our border, like we need another hole there. The same thing with GL, the same thing with Walsing. This is all about greed. It's about getting their property values up so they can sell it to somebody else. Because, 2024, one of us in this room are going to be around in 2024. This is something that is way far in the future. I wasn't looking at you, Ken. Looking at myself. But the point is that we do have to present a united front as the Western communities. And that we do have to show up at county meetings. And as far as going to Denise Neiman or Bob Banks to ask them an opinion, you're going to get a dance. And because there's only one AG in the state of Florida. And granted, an AG opinion is just that, it's an opinion. If it goes to the Springs, well, that's where the final decision gets made. But I guarantee you, when I go down to talk to county commissioners, when the mayor goes down to county commissioners, and we have a piece of paper in our hand, and said, we have an opinion from the AG that says that surrounding properties is defined as this, not 5 miles away. We have a much stronger stance than sitting there and say, please protect our rural lifestyle. Because we've been saying that ever since I moved to Loch Statue Groves in 1978. And guess what? It doesn't mean anything. So, thank you.
Thank you. Nina?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I would like to ask, what is the goal? Because I think the goal of prevention is more than one issue.
Yeah.
And we have to have an achievable goal, a negotiable goal with them if we're going to, if we are going to achieve anything other than being shut out like the folks over at Century Village were shut out, or like we were shut out on the Highlands Dune District.
Yeah.
I hate to see us spend a lot of money, raise everybody up, the world's, the sky is falling, and not get anywhere when maybe we could negotiate bigger buffering areas or lesser, who knows? I mean, I believe that with all developers that you're in a negotiating process. I mean, certainly if they want one thing, they're going to ask for twice or 3 times as much, so that once you're done wheeling them down, they'll get what at least they need. So I think that we should understand that the goal of that staying agricultural forever is probably not going to happen. I mean, an idea like Professor Louder had on the subject of maybe a government entity buying it all out, but a lot of $51 million sitting around like these developers do, and that's, and what we're up against. We're up against, you know, we have to be realistic. We're up against money, we're up against the economy, we're up against jobs, we're up against all of that. So to say, stop, end it, I don't know that that's a realistic goal. It may be a desirable goal. Trust me, I'd be glad if not another house was built in Palm Beach County, but I don't think that that's realistic. I mean, I'd love to stay where I'm at, but I believe there's going to be a shopping center there soon. So, you know, when at the same time that that's happening, we have to realize progress is coming, progress is right here in our town. We've approved these kind of things.
Sure.
So we have to understand, you know, we have to have a realistic expectation, or we will just be disappointed,
Right.
and we will waste a lot of money.
And I think point well taken. And I think what we have to look at is what's already approved there. They have almost 3,000 homes that are approved there. It is more than what matches around, but it's still, we're not asking them to do away with that. They came in and said Highland Dunes was already approved into 2 to 1 acre back in '04. Therefore, they had to honor that. All we're asking them to do is honor what they and their experts, all of their county experts got up there and said, the roads cannot be built, so.
So that's consistent?
That's
a
exactly
goal,
right.
That's what we're aiming for.
The goal is to allow them to build what's
If you,
already
if,
approved.
if you get people to come down there, I want it to stay what it is, plant the orange trees back.
No, no.
You know,
That's,
we gotta be realistic. We have to be realistic
No,
what
we're
what we're
not.
hoping for. If the goal is, say, no increased density, and that's what we're pushing for, that's where our
what we're
negotiation
pushing for is what was approved in 2008.
Okay, well then that,
2,997.
Right.
And
And
1
along,
square feet of commercial.
and along that line, and we have to be very careful, because as far as I'm concerned, Loxahatchee Groves, the amount of commercial they have out there doesn't really affect us, if you hear what I'm saying. I can't really say that because to the acreage people, that might be an issue, so I'm not gonna tell them about that. To me, the issue is the number of homes
the trips that are gonna be coming through our.
coming down Okeechobee.
And that,
Because,
and that's a valid concern, and as I've said before, maybe one of our issues should be, we want Okeechobee to be a town road in Okeechobee. We don't want it to subsequently become a 4- and 6-lane road, and if that's one of our goals, maybe that's an achievable goal.
Yep.
You know, and that may be, you know, it's like, look, leave us alone, go around. That's something to say,
and I would love
we
to
could
do that.
achieve. So maybe that's what we need to look at. Maybe that's what we even need to propose to them, is don't use anything through our town. Don't use, who knows what they agree to, who knows what they don't agree to, who knows what the county agrees to.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great.
You know, it would be nice if that would, for that would be the case.
If we didn't, we're gonna be dealing with a whole lot more traffic lights than these.
Well, it depends, let me assure you, as someone who lives on Southern Boulevard, you don't want to run into the situation where you have that kind of a road there, because then you're turning right, and you want to go left, and you're going down, and you're trying to figure out a way around, and you're where you don't need to be every
We're
time you
dead
leave
on
your
our
house.
horse crossings.
We're dead on all of it, it's not a good thing, but I think we need to figure out what are some constructive goals Loxahatchee Groves can do that can live with what will happen no matter what, unless the economy crashes again. Economy crashes again, we're all gonna sit here again. But if it picks up, we all know people are coming.
Sure.
We love the sunshine.
Okay, Nina?
Question, you hit the button perfectly on with some things, and that is, yes, you cannot change what's already been approved. That's a done. 2,900 and something. However, we're talking about doubling that. We're talking about doubling the number of trips. And that is not something that they're currently permitted. I looked up, I wish I had a different day, I thought I did, the state statute, or the state statutes on new urbanism, and how they don't apply to sprawl, unless you convincingly argue that what they're building is not new urbanism. And, you know, we have some connections down in Miami that are very well versed, that I can possibly tap into, which is we do that very quickly without much ado. The other concern that I have is that they are proposing 3 exits outside of the exit to Seminole Craft, 3 exits down to 140th, one close to 60th, and not not quite sure exactly where it's at because the school was there. One to 50th for Simmons, and one to Orange. Well, if you look at Orange, zoom back, Orange does not go through. You'd have to jog over because the canal's in the way. So guess what that means? That traffic, depending on where it's trying to flow to, is going to come to us, whether they ask us for reliever roads or not. Some of it might go down 40th, some of it is going to go through us through our cut-through. They don't have to ask us. You know, the traffic will flow as the traffic will flow. And maybe their computers calculate it properly, maybe they don't. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And you can show up with numbers, you can show up with people, and I think that will be the one very important thing that is going to convince the commissioners to see it our way. I don't think we'll get enough votes if we don't have enough people showing. The other is, I've looked at our school. Our school, the middle school, Western Pines, is at 109% capacity. And their projection doesn't look any better. I've looked at Crestwood. Crestwood is much better, and their numbers are going down. The middle school in Wellington is a little fuller than Crestwood, but the numbers are also projected to go down. But they're going to add all these homes. The whole idea of keeping that cut-through to the back is not to let these 6,000 homes worth 2.5 cars or whatever the percentage is travel through our town. You know, how are we going to protect us? We can protect ourselves up to a certain point. We can possibly reduce the number of homes that they're going to build, but we're not going to be able to do away with the development that's already been approved. And there seems to be a trend going on these days. They come in, they ask for something with much more reasonable numbers, and then they come back and ask for more. And that's what's been going on with these developers. And once they have a little bit, and it's like the cookie jar in Mama's kitchen is just too full. We need to figure out ways that we can convince the commissioners that this is not a good idea, that this is not new urbanism, this doesn't belong in the neighborhood that you're proposing to go in, and it is not following suit with what was already proposed for that site. I know staff, what's happening, what's different with this because of the special round, is that there are several things that they're looking at the same time. It's not like the normal thing where you do one thing and then another thing and then another thing. All the departments are kind of looking at different entities and they're putting the train together, so to speak. And that's going to be a lot more difficult for us to kind of, stay on top. It's going to be a long haul, and it's going to be important that we somehow let the people know when it is time to show up, because there will be meetings like the one in December that may not be as important. And so to be able to get the word out in some sort of manner when it is time to show up and show the numbers would be important. And then I believe the planning is comparing it to their own section that's, I've been told 3.5D is the section that they have to comply with.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. All right, Mike, you go up with anything? Any numbers?
Well, gosh, I told you before I wasn't a numbers guy. No, I mean, what was said earlier about the ADO for the, was prepared in January or I think or December, I think it would be comparable to that. Just so you know, in anticipation of this issue, I did just start looking to see whether there's any cases or any other ADOs out there on what, and there's really nothing even on this statute, much less on what's surrounding me. So I haven't gotten the next level to say, okay, what does surround me, another contact? But I think I can have a draft for you to review and authorize by December 3rd with the, gosh, I know Ron wants the exact number, I wish I could.
No,
But a few hours, but I can't see much more than that to give you a draft to look at your December 3rd meeting to authorize it be sent.
Oh, and I agree with what Dennis said. To me, the next fastest step that we need to do, we need to get an opinion from the Attorney General, and basically whatever that costs, we need to do it, and it should fall in the same standards of the one that you've already done.
I agree.
So I don't have a problem with that, because we've got to have somebody from higher up to,
And if in my research I find an answer, or what I think the answer might be, I'll let you know that on December 3rd. Because, you know, one thing you ask, you remember when you ask a question, you're gonna get an answer. It's nice to know what the answer would be, but if it truly is an open answer, at least you know what the Attorney General thinks it is.
okay,
So we make a motion to have Mike move forward and prepare,
A draft for your consideration on December 3rd.
and we don't have to send it out.
Jim's making that motion. There's a second.
I'll say.
Second by Ron. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, passes 4-0. Just to let everybody know, we're not alone in this fight. All of the acreage is up in Royal Palm Beach. They're gonna, whatever traffic we get, they're getting. So, you know, it affects a lot of communities. So, just for your information, the last time we fought the Calvary judge and won, it involved petitions. My wife and I are committing, we're gonna be out there along Okeechobee getting petitions signed against this thing. So one of the things, if you know about politicians, you know, all of these county commissioners, I'm sure, have bigger political desires after the county commission. Therefore, we have to let them know that there's a lot of us out here that want to hold them to what they've already approved. And we will, so anyway, thank you. Moving to new business, 9A. That's Ron, Brian, Compton, and myself.
All right, I want to compliment the staff, starting from Mike up to Mark, and the mayor for this letter that went out to the residents on Bryan's Road. It was done quicker than what I thought it could be done. It was sent out Friday. I had residents call me on Saturday, very happy that they finally received something positive. And basically, the letter states that within 2 to 3 months that we hope to resurface our road. Now, in order to accomplish this, we had a group of people, me, the town manager, Steve Yohe, and John Ryan. We went up to Jupiter Farms to check out the roads that they're micro resurfacing up there. They've been doing it for years, and we all agreed that we liked it and that we believed that it would be the best thing for the 3 roads, Compton, Bryan, and Marcella. Now, what I'd like to see is Mark has received, and he received it late, but he's received what they call open contracts with different counties that the North Florida emulsions are working for. And the way I understand it is if we piggyback off another contract, it has to be open. Now, we were talking about Jupiter Farms, but I found out Jupiter Farms don't even have a contract with them. Basically, they came up with the lowest price, and they had called around for suggestions. And so they're using North Florida emulsions. They've used them in the past, and they're continuing to use them. So what I'd like to see, Mark, when Mark does have a chance to go over the open contracts, I'll have it on the agenda. I don't think I'd like for us to make a decision tonight, but I'd rather give Mark time to do his part. So on the next month's agenda, it'll be on there, and I hope the council will be able to make a decision that we can piggyback off another county contract. And just for an example, Volusia County, we were talking, we've got some quotes from this North Florida emulsions, okay? And our quotes was a certain amount, and Jupiter Farms was actually higher. They're paying more than what we were quoted. Well, the best thing is these, we couldn't piggyback off them, but the ones we can piggyback off, their quotes is lower than what we were offered. Now, if we piggyback off of them, North Florida emulsions, we ought to be obligated to follow that same quote. So we'll be getting a better deal than what we thought. The other thing is we've got 3 roads to do, all right? If they come in and do one road at a time, and our priority right now is that we do Bryan's, because Bryan's would fall under our procurement policy because it's under the maximum amount we're allowed to procure jobs from. But if they come in and do all 3 roads, then they'll only charge us one cost of bringing that equipment into our town. And they should finish up in Jupiter at the end of November. Right now, they don't have any work pending. They would love to come into Loxahatchee in December before they move out of here and do our 3 roads. So we have a meeting on December the 3rd, I believe it is. So I'll bring it back on December the 3rd, and I'll be hoping that the council will support it, and that we get 3 roads done that these residents have been waiting for years now to do. So that's where I stand on Brian and Marcel and Tom.
I just want to remind the Vice Mayor too that we're going to be getting out a follow-up to those people. The specific document that was provided to them was a form so they would understand what would be coming. The document will be prepared with their specific information. The meeting tomorrow is folks in office, so we can start getting those documents prepared to those folks. Doing the work on Brian's going to depend on getting those documents back. So we don't know realistically if that will be done to the end of the month, but we're working hard to get it done as soon as we can.
For all those roads, it's going to depend on them getting those buildings.
Compton and Marcella, we have, I think, those, we have 1 or 2 outlined, whatever. I want to, I'll work with Mark, try to get in touch with those folks.
Okay.
But Brian, you know, we're doing it ourselves, and we'll go as fast as we can. But I just wanted to make sure that I put that on the record. We'll do it as quickly as we can.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Ron.
Mike, a question for you. When you finish the legal documents and stuff, are they all going to be finished at once, or are you going to, in other words, can we send some out?
I'm going to try to get them out as we get them done, proof it, get them marked, send it out.
Okay.
You know, just, you know, so I'm not going to wait and then send Mark all 25 or whatever the number is, Brian. If I get 3 done, 3. Get 2 done, 2. Get it to Mark, you know, as we get them out. Because he doesn't want to be inundated with that as well. But we're going to be getting them out. Hopefully by the end of this week we'll start. I don't want to overpromise, but that's one of my goals, to get some to Mark by the end of this week. If not, definitely next week before Thanksgiving, we're going to get these documents out.
Okay. And we do have people on Brian's Road that they're willing to get everybody together and try to make this happen as fast as possible.
Understand?
Now, I mentioned Compton and Marcel. Compton and Brian, for everybody's information, is my priority because the residents on both those roads have been begging us now for years. I have not received 1 call from Marcella, but we do know that Marcella needs to be done at the same time. We don't maintain the roads that we have, and all 3 of those roads did not cost us to put down the foundation. The county did, Brian, and the district, the water control district, or the commissioners did Compton and Marcella. So when we get that much for free, then as a town, we're obligated to maintain those roads before it gets to where it costs us an arm and a leg. And this micro resurfacing is going to be, it's nice, and it seems to be holding up very well in Jupiter Martin. So that's where, and at the December, because we've only got a few weeks till December the 3rd, we'll be bringing up another situation with the Water Control District just got a good heavy-duty hedging machine, John Deere tractor. Now, we've got a contract, and Mark can think about this and come back at the next council meeting. But we've got a contract now with Star Trucking, and supposedly we're going to finalize the situation with that. But, you know, if because of the situation we're in with them, they cannot perform the
We
work.
probably need to be very careful with that.
Okay.
As far as until the one is taken care of to be talked about that.
Well, my road was done very neatly, and now it's overdue again, so we need to solve the problem and move on.
Okay. All right. And I know that I just hearing about this microsurfacing, I do have some concerns about it, only because we're changing an open emulsion where the water drains through to something that doesn't. So, I mean, and I know the same company is pushing it, but, you know, that's really not what they talked about the first time we had our roads open. because they were talking about another product at that time. So for a future meeting, I mean, it's, you know, something we need to deal with. Okay, Ron?
Okay, when you make a comment like that, Mr. Mayor, I've got to come back to something. Okay, first of all, and we discussed it at our intergovernmental meeting today, okay, you may believe that OGM allows water to flow through it. But we just spent a few $1,000s putting in a basin because where the water sit on top of the OGM, it basically corrodes it. So the way the OGM works truly is it's a rough type material to where the water runs off of it. So you will never see it sitting on there unless it has no place to go. If it can't get away from it, it is going to sit on top of that OGM. Now, the other thing we agreed on is OGM is the foundation. Okay, when we put the micro surface on top of it, that's almost like we've agreed to resurface the OGM in a period of 7 to 8 years. So we're going to be putting something on top of that OGM. Whatever we put on top of the OGM, it'll do the same thing as the micro surface, and it's going to make it where the water definitely will not flow through it. So, and one reason we used that was we used OGM primarily because it does not fall under county or state standards. Okay, if everybody had their wish to have guardrails on the canal, we have pavements countywide and statewide. But the OGM was strictly used mainly because it does not have standards to it, and this micro resurfacing does not have standards to it. And these 3 roads that we're talking about doing, and you're talking about $3 for a square yard compared to $9 a square yard. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, Frank Sherrill.
Frank Sherrill, Marcelo Boulevard. I don't dispute that Compton and Bryan need to be done. Marcel's not in bad shape, but you need to maintain it just like Councilman Gerald said. But on Compton and Bryan, we need to have drainage over there because we don't have drainage, especially on Compton. Anything that we do to the road, we're going to have to come back next year and do it when we have our summertime rains. And in the middle of the road, it floods and through hydraulic process it erodes. So, and that is something that needs to be done, especially on Compton. There's a couple of blockages that need to be fixed so the water will flow. On Marcel, the water flows adequately, it just needs some minor clearing in my opinion. And on Bryan Road, there's some areas where the water flows good, there's other areas where there is no swale at all. It's just a flat piece of land. So that's what we need to look at also. We don't want to go and do this and have to come back next year and say we've got to do it again. You know, we need to go and do the drainage.
Thank you, Frank. All right, moving on to, did you take care of A and B with that one?
No, my other one was,
All right, you need to get them in quicker, sir. All right, hold on. Go ahead. Which one are you talking about?
Okay, I'm talking about, what is it? Compton, Marcel, and...
Yeah, 9A.
Right.
Okay.
Bryan, I agree with you. Yeah, Bryan. That is treacherous. Compton, I went and rode on. There's no problems there. There is some. There's some with every road. But Marcello, that would be a highway in Loxahatchee. If all of our roads was like that, it would be great. Why are we going to spend money to resurface these roads and other roads you can't even drive down because they're in such poor shape? That's my question. We're spending money on roads that are in fine shape, basically. I'm not an engineer. Maybe an engineer could find a lot of problems with them. I can't. I can drive nice, smooth, safe. Other roads out here, good luck going down. So why are we going to pay to have that done? Who owns those 3 roads?
Town does.
Or the town will when we get the paperwork back on Bryan.
Who owns them?
Town is in the
I
process.
can't-
The town,
Okay, they're owned by the town?
yes.
Okay.
The people on the roads have signed over their ownership to the town.
Okay.
In an easement, and the town has control of those roads, and that's what the process is currently going on Bryan. That would be one explanation as to the difference between that road and another road.
Okay.
Another explanation would be, however, that there are no standards for the dirt roads, and that's why you find a great deal of variance between one and another, because there is no standard that says they need to be at a specific elevation, a specific width, or of a specific material. That's why you have all the things the way they are. As Ron said, they're not up to state standards. That means they're not.
Why aren't they?
Because
You can't
it's-
You can't afford it.
We can't afford to bring the dirt road up to state standard, but we can
State
build,
standard.
repave a road that's already paved.
Well, the thing is, if your road was owned by the town, then we would proceed with that when we have the money. But one thing that was illustrated by what Ron said, imagine every road in town were OJ. And imagine we were able to do it on a 7-year cycle. On year 8, we would be resurfacing 1/7 of the roads. Same for 9, 10, and until year 1 million. We would always be on a 7-year resurfacing cycle for every road through the whole town. If everybody wants that, they just have to pay for it. But I don't believe that that is the goal for most people. And it would be an expensive situation because it's just builds up. And you are correct in pointing out, we got 3 that we have to fix, plus we got all the letter roads that are OJ. All of those will be in need of repair soon. So all those bills will add up, and the time of, the current time when we're putting money in the bank or when we're breaking even will go away. Especially as more services are required. So just understand, we can put dirt on your road. We can put rock on your road 3 feet tall. But as we do that for your road and everybody else's roads, we have over 100 miles of roads. And you do the math, because you're good at it. Figure out how many cubic yards, if I gotta build a road 20 feet wide, 3 feet tall, and 100 miles long. Figure out how much that's gonna cost. Divide it up by the 3,000 people in town, nobody wants to pay the bill. That, in the end, is what everybody has to get.
Well, what did you say, it boils down to money.
Sure.
That's the same thing we were talking about the other projects around here. You're
All
not
of
gonna
them, yeah,
fight it
exactly.
Because it's money.
You're correct.
So why even discuss it here or try to do anything about it over there? I'm getting off the subject, I apologize. My question is, you misunderstood me. Maybe because I'm talking lower now than I did the first time. Because your mic's turned up. I didn't say the 3 roads needed to be resurfaced.
No, I know you
I
said
said
there
the
should.
one road, Bryant, definitely needs,
Well,
it's unsafe. The
let me
other 2
just-
roads, you can drive down and read the Sunday paper, you can hold a cup of coffee in your hand and not spill it in your lap.
Not to debate you, but there have been people who have come here who have told me that there is a hole Sherman tank can fall in.
Yes.
They have told me that the road is gonna fall out, that they can't approach their house because they have, snakes, alligators, swamps in their
I like
yard. The whole road is covered over with water. I've heard all the stories about all the places.
Now, let me ask you a question, since you heard it, have you rode out there and looked at it?
Sure did.
Because everybody.
I will.
Okay.
I ride them 3 and 4 times a
Yeah,
week,
Ron.
all of them.
Okay. So Ron, you know what it's like with Ryan Road, and compare that to the other 2. The other 2 are perfect compared to Bryant. Okay.
Well, the thing is, we all, it would be nice to say it ought to be this way, but the thing is, for 100 years, people have left it be the way it is. I was at a guy's house today and he were trying to, how are we gonna line this fence up? Well, you want me to fix 100 years of you fill in the blank. That's the problem in Loxahatchee. Nobody cared for so many years. Now we can't fix it overnight, tomorrow, free.
Well, I just can't see spending our tax dollars on a road that's not in that much shape, and there's other ones you can't even drive in. That's my whole point. Why is it being done?
Point taken.
Thank you.
We hear it. All right. What was you want to go to 9B now, Ron?
Come on. 9B is just about the vacant property register and or C, what was B?
Well, we was on Florida motion. I think you combined that with A and B.
Yeah, I can combine that with A and B. C, C.
Yeah.
Basically, same situation. I do believe that we need a vacant property register in Loxahatchee. Quick question for you, Mark. The house on C Road, has it been added to our list yet?
It hasn't been added yet. We were looking to see, you'd asked why it hadn't made the list. The best I can tell is, one of two things. Either they didn't actually come in, register with us, or it was on and for some reason it dropped off. I have no proof of the second. So I'm gonna think more than likely they just didn't do it. And so, but I guess I defer to Mike. Can we actually have them do it now?
Well, I was gonna say, I will contact the attorney, and I spoke to him a couple months ago, I'll follow up with him and see what's going on with the file and with that. Like I said at the last meeting, that we'll go to review it, but I can call the attorney and I can forward again, a copy of our ordinance to registration.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. In other words, these people, they do it for Royal Palm, they do it for Wellington, and they were hired by these other towns because they realized that they fit town. Okay, they couldn't keep track of it. They were losing money and they weren't taking care of the problems. I feel like us as a council, we have an obligation to the taxpayers in Loxahatchee. Okay, the house on Sea Road, it is unsafe. It is open. Over a year ago, a magistrate said that it had to be closed down. It had to be closed up to keep somebody from coming into it, setting it on fire. It's already been set on fire one time. Okay, we have an obligation as a council to clean up stuff like that, okay? And this vacant registry people, they've proven themselves in Royal Palm, Wellington, and we've got a list of all the counties they're working for. All right, and it's back to, it does not cost this town anything out of our pockets. If they find what we've found already that has to be, that's registered, they will not take no funds out of that, okay? But if they find something, and I expressed at the last council meeting on Morrow Court, there's a home on 5 acres. The grass is over 5 and 6 foot tall. Wintertime is here, the rains will stop. It's a fire hazard for a brush fire. When the grass catches on fire, it goes right up to the house. You're gonna have a major fire, okay? There's nobody living there, all right? It's vacant. Now, I don't know who owns it, or no, I do know. I had the thing in front of me at the last council meeting. But that's another property that's not on our list that we just became aware of because the people that live on that street are tired of people driving in there and they don't know what they're driving in there for, and nobody lives there, and it makes their place look like a sore thumb. You got the house just next to it that wants to sell, and when they come in there and they see that garbage, you know, it hinders them selling their home. We have problems in Loxahatchee. This vacant registry will solve those problems, and they're good at their job. So I'll bring it up at the next council meeting. It'll give management plenty of times to realize that we can piggyback off these existing contracts. They will not cost the taxpayers anything, but it will help clean up your town. And we've been a town now for over 7 years. It's time we started doing something about these problems we have out here. That's it for me.
Okay. Moving to closing comments. I have no public cards. Mike? Madam Clerk?
Just the 2 things, I just want to wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and I do want to say go Gators.
I thought you were
You said that the last couple of meetings too, right?
It hasn't worked yet. We're playing Georgia Southern.
Okay.
We're going
You can be Georgia Southern, yeah. All right, council members, starting with Tom.
Go Gators and.
Okay, Ron.
I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you all for coming. One brief comment. Daryl and his wife that was here tonight, or friend or whatever, they were here for the simple fact that they need fill on their road, okay? Now, I talked to Mark today at the intergovernmental meeting today to clarify what our policy is. Our policy is that if a resident calls in and says that they got hold of it, they need fill or whatever, that they call the town. If it's a district road, they call the district, and then we can go out and we check it out. Now, I went out and rode the road. I spent 10 years with operating engineers, heavy equipment. You've got a cul-de-sac at the end of their road where the trash truck turns around. You've got one hole in the corner that if a regular car went in, it would get stuck. You got another spot down the road where it's obvious that when it rains, that where the mailbox is, it may cover the whole road, okay? They need, as far as I'm concerned, they need a minimum of 2 loads of fill out there, okay? We've had people from the town, we've had people from the district go out and look at their road. And all we're doing is moving dirt from a high spot to a low spot. Now, dirt does not grow, at least I haven't found any dirt that grows. So when you move it from one place to the other, then it drops the whole road down. Now, it may be nice when you grade it and when it's not raining, okay, and you've got a nice smooth road, but no matter what, you're moving that dirt around. And we lose the dirt through the dust, we lose it when it rains and the tires carry it off the road. So we need to maintain our roads. And I don't want to hear this thing about, well, your road is not any worse than the rest of the roads in Loxahatchee. When somebody calls in, we need to get somebody qualified to go out and say, hey, they need a load of fill. The residents aren't just dreaming, they ride on that road every day. And I do disagree with Darrell about Compton Road. Compton Road's in terrible shape, but his neighborhood uses Bryan's Road every day. So many people over off F Road, they use Bryan's Road, and the same on Compton, but not as bad as Bryan's. So we got 3 roads there. The council needs to think heavy while they got 2 on the way. So I'll be bringing it back to them next month. Thank you.
Mark?
Mayor, on that point, I promised earlier in the meeting that I would provide comment relative to that. I just want to let you know that we did have a very good discussion, as the Vice Mayor indicated, at the IGC today, and we talked about the dirt road situation. Actually, Mr. Yowie and I did do a site visit on the road today after the IGC meeting. And I drove, so I wanted to see how it would react in my vehicle. And I gotta tell you, after the grading, that's a nice road. I mean, there were no troubles. The Vice Mayor is correct. We did see one area down toward the turnaround where it looks like, possibly some fill could go in there and correct that situation. But, I mean, in terms of, I drive a lot of the roads, and I mean, there was no washboard effect or anything. I mean, it was, and I will say this too, since the time that Mr. Fisher came into our office, as I promised him and his neighbor, we've been monitoring the road, and had Mr. Shiola periodically go out. I know the district has been trying to keep it up. It's just a question, as it relates to rock, we have a limited budget on rock. So all we're trying to do is be judicious in terms of where we use the rock. And so, I mean, we'll continue to monitor it, obviously, but, I mean, I was on it today, and that, collectively, it's Mr. Yogi's opinion as well as mine, so.
Okay.
Okay, I got to follow up on that, okay? These people on this road, okay, they're not liars, okay? Over 8 weeks ago, when it was graded by the district, the operators of the grader said that, hey, you need fill on this road, okay? They didn't say how much. They were told by the district that they would come back and give them a certain amount, okay? I spoke with Steve today, and Steve said basically that it was no worse than any other road in Loxahatchee. That's where I got that comment. Now, these council members, it wouldn't hurt you to take time out to ride over there and see that as they graded, it's getting deeper, okay? And we did get a decent rain today. So go over there tomorrow and look at it while there may still be water there, and look at the hole and look at the mailbox and see for yourself, because it does need fill. Thank you.
Tom?
I can't disagree with what Ron's saying, because, as I said before, we don't have a standard. He goes and looks at it, he thinks one thing. Mark thinks one thing. So Steve Yowie. I mean, that gentleman thought Compton was fine because he has a problem on Bryan. I'm sure Mr. Murphy thinks different about Compton. I know he does. So it's perception, and when we don't have a standard, there's no way to say. It's like, did you do a good job today? Oh, sure. I think you did, you did. But, your boss might not think so. Or so you have to have a standard. You have to have it agreed to what we're doing. I'm not saying that's an easy thing, because like I illustrated with him, whatever we say, if we added 6 inches of rock across the whole town, I think we'd be back. So where does that put us? you know, and then 6 inches of rock, you couldn't even start. You know, another illustration is, we've got $3 million, we got 3,000 residents, send me a grant. That's basically where we're at. You have $1,000 per person to spend. It doesn't go very far in this world. We are a little town, and we have a small budget, and we have a low tax base and low income. We have to either raise our income or reduce our expectation. You know, not us as a council so much as the people who live here need to either say, we want a high service, high tax community, or we want a low tax, low service community, but a high service, somebody else pays the bill community is probably not available. So that's my thought.
Well said, Tom. Okay. Jim?
Thank everybody for coming.
Okay. And again, thank everybody for coming. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And I agree with Tom. I think almost every one of us moved here to Loxahatchee. There were rough roads, but that was part of the lifestyle. And that's what we moved here for. And he's right. If all of a sudden we want it to look like Wellington, pretty soon we will not be able to afford to live here. Because, you know, like he says, and that was a good analogy, $1,000 a person. So if we got 10 people that want $10,000 spent on them, that means that there's
100 people don't get nothing.
they get nothing. So let's be careful what we ask for and do the best we can with what we got. And I'm the wrong guy to ask to ride the road, because I still remember what it was like 34 years ago. To me, they're all wonderful. Anyway, if you don't lose the truck in it, it's nothing.
Zero's an improvement on when I moved there.
There you go. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.
Listen, when Folsom was a third road, they used to be able to do 60. Oh, I remember Folsom Road after rain day, you couldn't do 5.
With a cup of coffee.